when you're a realtor, if you look at houses every day, if you look at 20 houses, one of them is going to stand out and you're going to go, that's the deal. Like, that's the one. And when you're showing the houses to the client, to a buyer, they're looking for, oh, what's my house? Like picket fence, like what I want. Yeah, they want it to be a good deal, but they want it to be, their dream house or whatever. So their mindset is different. And when an investor looks at it, they're like, here's 20 properties. That one's going to make money. So let me buy that one. And so what realtors should be doing is, when they're out just doing their thing, it's just when they see that one that's like, that's the deal, stop and buy it, write a contract and buy that property. And they just don't. So I don't know how we break through that mindset with them. But so we've been, just kind of preaching the gospel of that, like, hey, even one a year. So if you buy one a year and you buy it at the right price, you put it on a 15-year mortgage. So when you start getting to that end of that 18-year cycle, those properties are paid for. Their value has doubled or whatever. They've gone up in value, and you've paid the mortgage off. So let's say the first one you buy is $150,000. 10 years later, or 15 years later, the mortgage is paid off and it's worth $300,000. And you had a renter in the property the whole time. So, there's some hassle and carry and, whatever, maybe it costs a little bit of money, but generally speaking, the tenant paid the rent, which paid the mortgage. So 15 years later, you have $300,000 asset, which is still being rented and making a profit, and you didn't pay for it. And it's literally the best investment there is. And it's true for anybody, but for realtors specifically, like, we are supposed to know more about this than anybody. And it's right there. Like, we see it every day. But if you polled 100 realtors, maybe 5, maybe 10 would have any kind of investment portfolio. So yeah, as you can tell, I could just talk about this, but.
Well, it is really interesting, like that whole shift in mindset. And so I have a few questions, but let's start with like your personal experience. I mean, you're a realtor. You said you were in the game for years before it clicked. Can you tell me about that moment when it did click? Like, what was it that made you finally see that this is something you need to be doing?
Well, like I was saying, when I got in 2003, things were super hot, and people, me included, were buying stuff kind of willy-nilly. Like, you could buy anything and make money, right? And so a lot of us at that time were buying properties and making investments and flipping stuff and whatever. But there was you didn't really have to put any discipline to it. You could buy anything and it's like Bitcoin or something. Like, you buy it and like, poof, it goes up. And, look how smart I am, right? But then everything crashed and everybody kind of lost everything. Well, if you had been buying with the proper discipline then, which some people were, I'm sure, where you're saying, hey, I'm only going to buy a property where I can get it at 70% of the market value, or whatever you decide your criteria are. And if you bought it right and the rent was paying, you talk about it cash flowing, it's bringing in more rent than it costs, right? So if you're buying properties that cash flow and you've been disciplined about your process, then it doesn't matter whether it's up market, down market, whatever. People need a place to live and they're going to pay the rent. Or in some cases you won't have that, but if you have good tenants for the most part and they're paying the rent. And so for me, I went through all that, and it took me years to go, man, I should buy more properties. And then now I'm looking at, okay, I'd like to retire in 10 years. So I'd like to have way more, assets than I have now. Like right now I have 8 rental properties and I, wish I had 20. And I'm starting to look at buying apartment buildings and other things to accelerate that. But I think kind of the central theme, and maybe, I'm, not to tell you your business, but like from even like title of the article, to me, it's like, it's stock market versus real estate. So everybody should be doing some kind of retirement planning. For the most part, it's either stock market or real estate. And for realtors, we're going, why would you put money in the stock market, which you absolutely don't know as much about as you are an industry expert at real estate? It's one of the safest, most consistent investments you could make. And, that's the vibe. So it's, hey, you should absolutely be planning your long-term retirement, building your passive income. And so the focus should be real estate. The focus should be within real estate, should be buying assets with the proper numbers and setting your own criteria. Like, so for me, I'm trying to buy properties within a 10-mile radius of my little farm, so that I can easily manage them. And that's the decision I've made. Now, I know other investors who are buying properties hundreds of miles away because they've identified a market that's really, really attractive. Like maybe they can just buy really well, or the prices are going through the roof, or whatever the reasons are. But so, my criteria is not the same as another investor, but it's set your criteria, make good decisions about what you acquire, and have a plan. I want one property a year for 18 years, or, whatever you decide your plan is.